Imagine a girl made of candy, cheerfully snapping off pieces of herself to comfort sobbing children across the world. A purely selfless girl, literally sweet, existing to be given away. Each gift leaving her lighter, but the act of giving itself also making her more true. This is Madoka Kaname, a girl whose dream was to prevent the suffering of all magical girls across the world. The Madoka Magica 12-episode series shows us the story of how Madoka arrived at this dream. A coming-of-age story of a middle school girl struggling to find her purpose in life, and through trials and tribulations finally finding it, sacrificing her life and her own well-being for the sake of magical girls all around the world. An act born out of empathy, kindness, and an indiscriminate, selfless love. This is the first half of the story of Madoka Magica. Now imagine this candy-made girl, having just broken off a piece of herself, her hand outreached about to give it to a crying child, when suddenly this candy girl's friend violently grabs her wrist, pulling her away from the crying child to prevent her from becoming any lighter, handcuffing her candy-made friend to be by her side forever as the two of them walk around witnessing all the sad, crying children around the world, the candy-made girl unable to do anything about it. This is the second half of Madoka Magica, a 2-hour movie following Homura Akemi, a middle school girl living on the edge of despair, who has lost the one person she loves the most in this world, Madoka Kaname. In service of her goal of getting Madoka back, she forcefully undoes Madoka's sacrifice in an act of selfish love, forcing Madoka into a state before she realized her dream. This movie, Rebellion, is the most visually interesting movie I've ever seen. Every scene has something interesting to look at, culminating in Homura's witch sequence, which steps up the eclectic styles and abstract imagery to an insane degree. But visuals in Rebellion are not merely dressing, but rather they are the medium through which the point of the story is conveyed. But in order to understand what this point is and how the visuals portray it, we first have to understand Rebellion's structure. What do you think of when you think of the Madoka Magica TV series? My thoughts immediately go to the tone. The show is incredibly eerie, with an almost unsettling quietness. It's a tone established through lighting and silhouettes, brief ominous insert shots, music that makes you feel uneasy, eclectic labyrinths that are entirely creepy, a cute mascot with a cute voice that speaks with words that betray its appearance. It is unsettling. But beyond the tone, the show also, for the majority of its run, is entirely depressing. Mummy's death, Sayaka's hopeless end, Kyoko's sad past, Homura's eternal struggle. There is hope in the show, especially in its ending, but depression permeates the story. Now, when the show isn't eerie or depressing, it's full of action. But not a fun sort of action, but a type of action where no one is happy in the end. Fights where people die, fights between protagonists, fights where people lose who they are. This is the impression that the series leaves in my mind, and Rebellion's first act plays with this. The opening act rewinds the events of the story to resemble the start of the series. It has essentially the same characters and the same visual aesthetic as the series, with similar plot beats, but something's off. This isn't really the story we remember. We don't remember any upbeat transformation sequences that last 3 whole minutes. We don't remember girls defeating nightmares by singing songs about cake. The characters are all surprisingly cooperative. Sayaka seems to be completely over Kyosuke. Kyoko is uncharacteristically fighting alongside everyone and even enrolled in their school. The girls make picturesque victory poses at the end of their fights, standing in front of visuals from the show's opening, and Kyubey is a cute voiceless animal that has a classic catchphrase. Rebellion's opening act is familiar, but noticeably off. It's almost as though it's a romanticized or caricaturistic portrayal of the anime series. But this mismatch is the point. Through a romanticized portrayal in the opening act, Rebellion presents the first stage of a mind's gradual decay, Homura's denial and refusal to accept that Madoka is gone, creating an idealized reality which never existed in the first place. A reality where the girls are content with the lives they live, nothing too bad ever happens, and most important of all, Madoka Kaname is alive and happy. A world that denies reality. Rebellion's second act portrays the wavering of Homura's denial, the crumbling of the facade she has subconsciously painted over reality. And the way the movie does this is through the use of non-diegetic visuals. For those not familiar, the diegesis of sound is something you're almost certainly aware of. Diegetic sounds are sounds that the characters in a story can hear, whether it be an alarm clock or a song being played at a concert the characters are attending, while non-diegetic sounds are sounds that are not part of the world of the story and cannot be perceived by the characters, a character's theme song or exaggerated sound effects. Rebellion extends this idea to visuals, bringing the eerie very unnatural fakeness of the world directly in the face of the audience through creepy visuals that the audience can see, but the characters within the story never acknowledge and are seemingly completely unable to perceive. I'm talking about visuals like Homura turning to look at Madoka at the back of the classroom, but all the other students have abstract painted faces. Homura and Kyoko having lunch next to a cardboard creature creating infinite balloons from a music box, with an army of blimps in the sky that they just don't seem to perceive as the whole city revolves around them. A bridge as steep as a roller coaster, followed by countless parallaxing bridges that seem to have no start and end placed at unnatural angles. A sky now painted with brushstrokes, a floor that is an almost digital grid, with wind turbines filling the skyline. The most unsettling moment is during the bus ride, where we're shown this black, unnerving, abstract structure. The girls get a nice close look straight at it and show no confusion whatsoever. Instead, they interpret the structure as their bus stop and simply get mad at the bus driver for not stopping where they asked him to, not even registering that the bus driver himself appears to be a faceless mannequin. Then, on a subsequent trip, they walk by foot down a street resembling the anime's ending visuals, back into a moonlit grid-like world with a white twisting road to nowhere filled with street lamps, and on finally returning to the roller coaster bridge with a giant moon behind them, you think they've finally clocked the unnerving world they occupy. But no, they still don't see it. Kyoko remarking that something might be tricking them into returning to Mitakihara, but not once commenting on the unsettling visuals that surround them. People with cardboard cutout faces of Homura and Kyoko wander like zombies toward them, and although Homura and Kyoko now directly feel the unease that we see, they have no idea why they're feeling that way. These Act 2 visuals serve two purposes. On one hand, their eeriness shows us the reality of Homura's true world behind the facade, unnerving, dark, and depressing. But their non-diegetic nature makes us feel what Homura is feeling, that her perfect world is fake and eerie and wrong, and she simultaneously wants to know why, while also being unable to properly see things. It's the embodiment of the idea that you can feel the effect of grief before you allow yourself to truly admit it and work through it. In the narrative language of Madoka Magica, a witch is a symbolic stand-in for a girl who has experienced overwhelming grief, with this grief materializing in the form of a labyrinth. Put in the words of this visual language, what we see in Rebellion's second act is a witch not yet able to perceive her own labyrinth. As the facade over Homura's world continues to crack to an extent where she can no longer deny reality, Homura transitions into a state of acceptance. The visuals mirror this acceptance, with the bus ride confirming her status as a witch, transitioning the world into a flaming hell. The abstract imagery is on full display, with the world igniting into a fever dream. Everyday objects ascending to become skyscrapers, ominous faceless figures melting to become crazed familiars, a spiral building appearing as a cocoon encasing Homura and rising to meet the full moon, and Licorice Radiata, the flower of death and farewells, blanketing the entire world. The sheer magnitude of imagery is overstimulating and demonstrates Homura's complete embracing of her true emotions, with the dark tone to every visual painting those emotions as overwhelming despair. At this point, Kyubey states plainly what the imagery in the movie up to this point has implied. All the events of Rebellion have taken place inside Homura's soul gem the entire time, a soul gem on the verge of becoming a witch, the ultimate form of a magical girl's grief. It's thus clear that Rebellion's acts have been stages of this grief made spatial. Denial through the first act's caricature, fracture through the second act's diegesis, and acceptance through the third act's overwhelming imagery, conveying that Homura's true reality is despair. But faced with words from the incubator confirming that they want to control Madoka, Homura channels her despair into a suicidal resolve to sacrifice her own life so that Madoka will be free. Through this decision, her grief is given form. A giant witch marching across her labyrinth in pursuit of death at the hands of her friends, being fully aware of the fact that dying in such a manner will result in her eternal suffering. The undying love that Homura has for Madoka has thus symbolically driven her through both form and feeling to suffer eternally in memoriam. And this undying love is condemned by the story, with Homura's friends fighting against her resolve and defeating it. The climax of Act 3 being a scene with Homura and Madoka embracing. Homura apologizes for turning into a monster for Madoka's sake and accepts that the law of cycles will take away her grief, and thus Rebellion's final message is cemented. To love is to be willing to let go. Anything less will lead to unending despair. The act then closes with Homura lying at rest on a concrete slab, waiting for the law of cycles, the symbolic stand-in for letting go, to cleanse her grief. But the movie isn't called Madoka Magica Acceptance or Submission or Release. It's called rebellion. A rebellion made clear in the third act's twist. Having embodied the film's lesson that love without letting go will inevitably lead to despair, Homoda lies on a concrete slab, having accepted the loss of Madoka, ready for the law of cycles to take away her grief. But as Madoka approaches for one final goodbye, a smile appears across Homoda's face as she violently grabs Madoka's wrists, and despite Madoka's screams and protests, she rips her apart into two souls, grabs her human soul, and remakes the universe into one where Madoka is forced to be by her side forever, living an ordinary life in an ordinary world. This is a viscerally upsetting scene, where Homoda crushes the dream of a kind, innocent girl who used her one wish for everyone else to be happy, in a selfish bid to keep that girl for herself forever. It's made even worse by the fact that Homoda completely understands that Madoka's sacrifice to become the Law of Cycles is what makes Madoka, Madoka. She states as much earlier in a scene on the hill. One day you'll find out there are things that only you can do, and then you'll know just how strong and how kind you really are. Forcefully ripping this dream apart is an action that contrasts Madoka's innocence, selflessness, goodness, and optimism to Homoda's selfishness, ruthlessness, manipulation, and moral corruption. Homoda even acknowledges as such, stating clearly that because of what she's done, she has become a demon. But it's a transformation she is willing to accept if it means that she won't have to let go of Madoka. This is a rebellion in the clearest terms, a character's rebellion against the theme of the story. In the end, Homoda wins, but is she happy? Perhaps, but at what cost? The visceral upset that we feel for what she does to Madoka is a resoundingly strong condemnation of her actions, which has ramifications for the film's message. To illustrate those ramifications, let's return to the analogy of the candy-made girl. Who is selfish? Is it the friend who locks the candy-made girl to be by her side forever in the pursuit of preventing her erasure? Or is it the girl herself, slowly, voluntarily fading away without the care for the feelings of those she will leave behind? A type of selfish selflessness. The 12-episode series makes no clear prescription. On one hand, the virtue of Madoka's sacrificial love is clear through a compilation of her saving the souls of magical girls all around the world and putting smiles on their faces. But condemnation is still present through Homoda's screams and tears, but made weaker through her eventual seeming acceptance. On the other hand, rebellion speaks with a clear voice. The friend is selfish, her actions are to be condemned. The first 3 acts of the movie show us the grief that inevitably stems from someone who loves without ever letting go, while rebellion's final twist pushes it even further, showing how love without the acceptance of loss not only griefs the soul, but inevitably morphs into control. Homoda refusing to let go of Madoka makes her no better than the incubator who wished to control her. Genuine love, rebellion suggests, must make peace with letting go. As Homoda cannot, she crafts a world to encase Madoka. A world that is gentle, sunlit, and completely ordinary, familiar corridors, desks, and warm afternoons. But the gentleness is the mechanism of its lock. Homoda doesn't free Madoka from the incubator's chamber or the witch's labyrinth. Instead, she plucks her friend out from her dream and places her inside a pretty cage.